I'd like to welcome President Sheares Ashby and Dr. Anupam Joshi to join us for a fireside-style chat, question and answer. And while they are assembling, I'll share. President Sheares Ashby began as the 6th president of UMBC in August of 2022, the first woman to serve in this role. She also holds a faculty appointment in UMBC's Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. Dr. Anupam Joshi serves as the acting dean of the College of Engineering and Information Technology and is the Oros Family Professor of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering at UMBC. Please enjoy the chat.
So we're doing a fireside chat sans fire. So it's just a chat.
That's so good.
So let me pick up President Sheares Ashby from where Stania left off about, you're being the 6th, and we still like to think new president at UMBC, although you're a sophomore. No, you're a junior.
Yeah.
Could you share the story of your journey, how you became a part of our community? Because I suspect there are many here who are not familiar with your background.
Sure, happy to do so. So first of all, again, thank you to everybody who arranged this. Anytime something goes well and it looks easy, you know that a lot of people were working before you showed up, right? And so thank you. We really appreciate all of your work. And thank you for coming out. This is my job. This is not your job. So for you to actually come out after doing your job all day, I'm sure, is really meaningful to us. So we appreciate it. How did I come to be at UMBC? Is that the question?
Your journey.
Okay, somebody said to me, you're a chemist. Like, how did, yeah, that was you. How does a chemist become a president? Let me start by saying I never planned to be anything but a teacher. That's where I started. I didn't even plan to be a professor. I planned to teach chemistry, probably in some version of K through 12, because teaching isn't what I do, it's who I am. Like, it's, when you know who you are. Fast forwarding, a lot of mentorship, people told me that you could do something else and more of that teaching thing. Introduced me to research as an undergraduate senior. Mm-hmm. And in my senior year, I decided I was going to go get a PhD. Instead of going to medical school, we can talk about that. But fast forwarding, I ended up as a chemistry professor. I love organic chemistry probably more than any other topic in the world. So it's thrilling to me. I know, Anupam.
Yes, the rest of us mere mortals merely struggled through organic chemistry.
No. It just happened to be my thing. That's it. But I actually, thank you, that's very kind. I was a chemistry professor and I thought I was going to do that forever. Because it was teaching, and then I had learned to love research, and it was service. And it doesn't get any better than working with students, undergrad, grad, and then working in the lab and the whole thing. I thought this is my favorite job, and I was doing it. And then my colleagues asked if I would consider chairing. Now, you need to know that's not an honor. That's a service, right? And everybody kind of has to do it at some point, right? And so I said no, and then I said yes later. And then in about 20 seconds, I loved it. And I thought, ruh-roh, this is interesting. And I had to stop teaching in order to do that job because our Department of Chemistry was so big. We had 250 graduate students and thousands of undergrads, and I loved it. And then my mentors said, guess what? You're an administrator. I was like, what? You got to be kidding me. I thought I was going to do this for a while and go back to doing what I was doing because I was still running my research group and I wasn't teaching, but I was running my research. Anyway, 2.5 years into being a chair, they said, you're going to be a dean. And I thought, I don't even know what a dean does. And they said, that's why you're going to interview for dean jobs because that's how you find out what the job is. You interview for it because then you have to study. And I did. Here's a strange story. They said you're going to interview only for the job that you would actually take. So for those of you who know, headhunters always, right? But then there are a lot of these things, you know you're not taking that job. So like, no, interview only for the job that you think you would take. So guess which one came up? It wasn't UMBC. It was Hopkins. So I interviewed to be the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Hopkins, and I fell in love with what deans do. Just studying it. I thought, deans do what I do times 30. This is fabulous. So instead of chairing one department, you're kind of the chair of all the chairs across arts, humanity, and I love a whole liberal arts and sciences education, so I thought, this is fantastic. I didn't get the job. I made it to the final two, but that was not my job. I was just supposed to know that I loved being a dean. Anyway, fast forwarding, 20 seconds later, Duke was looking for a dean, and I had prepared by interviewing at Hopkins, and then I became the dean at Duke. And if I hadn't prepared at Hopkins, I wouldn't have been ready because the dean at Duke job came up pretty quickly. Anyway, I love that job, and I thought after I finished it, I was going to go back to teaching organic chemistry because that's who I am. And my mentor said, there's no version of going back. Like back no longer exists for you. So they said, you're going to do the next job. I'm like, well, what is it? Because I don't want to be anybody's provost. I'm clear about that. I don't like what provosts do. You need a good one, but that's not Val. And they're like, oh, you're going to be the president. I'm like, that's insane. Anyway, fast forwarding, somebody called me and said Freeman is retiring. And I said, that's nice. Would you like for me to recommend people for you? As a head, because they ask you for recommendations. And she's like, no, I'm actually asking if you, I was like, what, quote, and I quote, you've heard me say this before, what idiot would follow Freeman Hrabowski? And then I talked to my mentors and they're like, oh, let's take a look. Anyway, I can remember the day sitting at my kitchen table during COVID, and I was reading the vision statement. And my heart started to beat fast, and I thought, oh my goodness, if these people are serious about what they say on this piece of paper, then I want to wake up and do that every day. And if you've never read it, it says we are redefining excellence in higher education. From right there, I thought, who does that? Who has the boldness to say we're going to decide what excellence means to us? And we're going to define it for ourselves through an inclusive culture. What? So you're saying if you're not inclusive, you're not going to call yourselves excellent? Right there, you could have put a period and I would have gotten on the plane, right? But it goes on to say we're going to do this in our teaching, we're going to do this in our research, and we're going to do it in our civic engagement. God, right? Like, literally, if your research is not inclusive, you're not going to call it excellent? What institution in the country does that? Nobody. Like, nobody. And then it goes on, and I've heard some of these words in the room today to say that we're going to advance knowledge, which every institution does, right, if you're not advancing knowledge. But then it says we're going to advance economic prosperity and social justice. Wow. Right? And then it just ends with this beautiful statement that I love, by welcoming and inspiring inquisitive minds from all backgrounds. I got nothing. Every time I say it, I feel the same way. Like I could, Samuel knows if I wasn't sitting in the chair, I'd be jumping up and down. And I thought, if you want to do that, then let's try. So anyway, that's how I got here.
There goes one of my prepared questions.
So I should say this. I did not plan to be anybody's president. Like I did not.
Well, we are glad you are ours. How about that?
I'm grateful. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
So talking about vision, right? You've often talked on campus and perhaps in these kinds of gatherings on staying true to that vision. We're going to go from UMBC 2.0 to UMBC sort of 3 point, right? Or whatever we were +1.
Right.
Could you highlight some of the exciting developments or milestones that you think have happened in UMBC recently? What stand out, things that are memorable, things that are helping us move in that direction?
Sure. Let's see. I can pick a couple. So one, I'm going to say, I'm going to say this. Do you all know that we're going to the moon? Is that not insane? So how many people don't know that we're going to the moon? Okay. let me tell you this because it never gets old to me. So they're in the Artemis 3 mission, which is in 2026, is that right? Anupam, 26? Okay. First time going to the moon since we went with human beings before, 50 or so years ago. There are three experiments, scientific experiments that are going. And one of them is from a university in Tokyo. One is from a company in Colorado. And the third is from UMBC. Is that not insane? Right? So that to me is just an extraordinary thing. So part of going from 2.0 to 3.0 is to stop hiding our light under a bushel. Right? I love humility, but we're actually hurting ourselves by hiding our light under a bushel. More people should know what we do. More people should be clamoring for our students, which are diverse and extraordinary. There's so many more partnerships that we could have. Just all of that visibility, not for visibility's sake, but for the sake of growing the institution's impact and attracting all of this wonderful talent. So that's just one example of, like, wait a minute, we didn't broadcast that on the national news? We're one of three and the only one in the country. That's extraordinary. So anyway, that's one. So when I say 2 to 3, it's that kind of elevation.
So, and colleagues, we're having the two of us sit down. When President Sheares Ashby says this, when she's standing up, there's a little nice dance that you do. Seriously, I mean, this is UMBC. We're excited about these kinds of intellectual achievements. So let me ask you, you probably expect this question coming, but you know that Maryland has budget challenges right now. And
Sure.
Let's not even talk about all the fun stuff that's happening, a few miles to our south. So that is going to create challenges for universities in areas like, research support and things of that nature. So how do you think we might position ourselves to tackle these challenges, and how can we involve our alums in supporting the university as we strive for student success and research impact while staying true to our mission in these challenging circumstances?
Wow. Okay, there is so much here. So let me start with, I'm going to, as a true academic, I'm going to rework the question a little bit, okay? So let me start with what's happening to our South, right? Because it's a big elephant in the room, right? So let me start by saying who we are and what we will always be. So you remember the vision statement I just said? That's who we are, okay? That's who we're going to be, period, okay? It's not a nice idea, it's not an option. It's actually who we are. It's our definition, and should be actually the world's, and it is actually the definition of excellence. So asking us not to be inclusive is asking us not to be excellent. And what day does an institution of higher education put down excellence for any reason, right? So I'm so clear that we're not moving. Okay, that sounds good, but I need you to know we have the privilege of being in that space, which I've said to a couple of you. We're in the state of Maryland. There's no better place to do higher education, public higher education today, and I believe higher education, than in the state of Maryland. Nobody in a governor's office is telling me what we can and cannot teach. Nobody is telling me who we can and cannot teach. Nobody is telling me what we can and cannot teach. And as a matter of fact, people are asking for us to educate more diverse people in the state and out of the state. Like, this is the best state to be in, do public higher education. I never have pushback from anybody within the state. So I say that. Budget-wise, the state is at a deficit, right, and struggling. We don't know how deep that cut is going to be, and a part of that is that a third of Maryland's economy revenue comes from the federal government. Our state relies on the federal government more than any other state in the country. Nature of proximity. And so the state budget is definitely going to be impacted, and that's definitely going to impact us. The good news, as I tell people, is that we started from a pretty strong budgetary stance, which that is not the case for all the institutions in Maryland, but we started there. And it's hard for me to imagine a version where we won't deliver the world-class education that we deliver. We may have to be creative, but that's what we do every day. So I'm not worried about the quality of what we deliver. I'm not worried about our commitment to our values. And then we're just going to adjust to the realities of budget cuts. I'm going to have people whose parents have lost their jobs, right? Proximity. Even if Hopkins, which they're talking about, cuts significantly, I've got so many parents who work at Hopkins, right? So it's a trickle effect that I don't know if everybody can appreciate. But having said all of that, when things are hard, you want to be at a place that knows who they are. And you want to be at a place with some serious values, because now is the time to exercise them, right? You put people first. And so that's what we will do.
So, we've both heard this question from alums, and what can we do to be supportive?
Oh, yes.
So,
okay, so here's what you can do. Students. Let's start there. Come back to campus. Talk to my students about what you're doing and the lives you have. 94% of our students have never been out of the state of Maryland. They don't even know what's going on over here. They can't even imagine the life you're living. They can't imagine the job you have. Like, they imagine working somewhere in the DMV, which is not a bad thing. But I want them to see the possibilities. I mean, look at the people in this room. Like, they need to see that they can be what you are and more, right? We'd love to have you connect with them. Just tell them about your pathway. Tell them it wasn't a straight line, right? Open some doors for them. Use your privilege and all of your position and success to give them access to things they would have never seen or heard, or people they'd have never met. Like, that's what you can do. We've got students who've lost all kinds of internships in this whole federal government thing, right? You have internships, please, right? They needed experiential learning. I will quote Freeman, since you already mentioned him. Freeman used to say, a day without an ask is a day without sunshine. We need you to give. Like, it's a poor president who doesn't say, please give back to the institution time, talent, service, treasure, whatever. Like, sometimes it's a scholarship for a student, but I want you to know I've got students who sometimes don't have $500 to continue. It doesn't have to be $50,000, right? Maybe it's supporting a professor, a young faculty member, people whose lives impacted yours. Give back to them, because they're going to actually share that with their students. That's what it is. It just keeps the opportunity going. So it's something, all of that, any and all of that. And we also need your support. Thank you, because I have felt it in the room from people who've said to me, what are you going to do with this whole federal government thing? And you're waiting to see if I'm on your side. And then here I am, and then you're like, great. Okay, I need you to keep doing those things with the whole community, because I got a whole campus back on the other side that's anxious. I got a whole set of faculty that's anxious, students that are anxious. I got international students who are scared. So anytime you can say to people, hey, I love what you're doing, we're supporting you as alums, the encouragement means more than you can know.
Thank you. So, as we were all talking to our alums, what stood out to you as you hear them talk about their experiences, sort of building life 3,000 miles away?
Yeah, so it's the same. So when I talk to you all, it's like my student office hours. So I have student office hours on Thursdays from 3 to 5. Okay, And students can sign up for 30 minutes, and they can bring their friends, they bring their parents, they can bring whoever they want to. They can come as a group, they can come one-on-one, and we can talk about anything. Sometimes they say, my mother told me to sign up, and I don't know why I'm here. I'm like, okay, let's talk, right? Because you know how mamas will send you. Okay. So whenever I'm talking to you, I get that same feeling. So to answer your question, what I hear from you about UMBC that sticks out to me is the same thing I feel. Like, I love the place because I love the people. So you are often telling me about some faculty member who did something extraordinary. I've heard it 10 times today, right? Faculty member who gave you an opportunity, a faculty member who took the time to do something one-on-one with you, a faculty member who introduced you to somebody, a fellow student who you all had a crazy idea together. Like, I've heard it, a staff member who, took the time to just encourage you. Like, that to me is what makes me love the place and gives me joy. And so I hear that from alums, which tells me, and I hear it generationally. So I hear it from people who graduated in the 90s, and I hear it, so it is, it's the consistent thing.
Mm-hmm. Apparently you have some West Coast cred yourself.
Just a little.
Just a little. So why don't you tell our colleagues about your time at Almaden?
Yes. So first time I came to the West Coast. That's true. First time I came to the West Coast, I came to San Jose. Okay. Strap in for those of you who graduated in like the last decade, because it's going to make me sound like I'm your grandmother. In 1990
something
1990 something, early 1990s. My PhD advisor was creative. And again, I think about your experiences with your people. And it was rare at that time that PhD advisors would let you go do an internship as a graduate student, right, in a lab, because they wanted you in their labs, right, and to work on something completely different than was in my dissertation. So he let me come. I'm a polymer chemist, and so he introduced me to probably one of the best in the business at that time, and he was at Alumni Research Center, which is an extraordinary facility. It was then. Okay, I spent probably about 16 weeks here. It was so wonderful that he said, I now need you to come home. And it was just enlightening. I thought, yeah, I really do love this science. I learned how to do things more efficiently. I learned that you should always have fun while you're doing your work. And it was just a beautiful experience. And what I did was then when I had my own graduate students, I made sure that everybody had an industry internship.
That's so interesting to hear, because I think it may have something to do with chemistry, because I remember when we were doing the G. Rice Fellowship,
Yes.
This was an argument between engineering and chemistry, because we were saying, yeah, students will go to internships in the summer, and chemistry was like, nope, students will stay in the lab.
That's correct. So my PhD advisor now is at Stanford. He's in the chemistry department, the chemical engineering department, the School of Medicine. So he already had that kind of interdisciplinary, out-of-the-box thinking.
See,
Yeah.
he had an engineering appointment, that's what.
Yeah, he had an engineering appointment.
So, another thing that, besides going to the moon, that we talk about is sort of the culmination of our 2.0's journey was sort of the R1 status from Carnegie. So we often, in our world, just say these words and say, we're an R1, and we expect that everyone is like, au courant with the buzzwords.
Yes.
For our alums, what did that mean? How does that, influence us?
So if you didn't know, it's a big deal. So at the time when we became an R1 the semester before I began. I started August 1st of 22. And here's the big deal. So there are various classifications of research institutions across the country. R1 is the highest level. what it essentially is, it's a quantifiable thing. It is not subjective. You have to have a certain number of PhDs that you graduate across multiple disciplines plus a certain amount of research income. And to achieve that is not trivial. At the time we were in it, think about every institution in the country, thousands, right? There were 145. Today there are 187. And we're still in there, right? And so it's a really big deal. There are many young faculty, quite frankly, graduate students and postdocs who only want to work at a Research One institution. Okay, like that's what it means. People want to work with you in a different kind of way. Partnerships open up because people just think that you really then are a serious research institution. Now, let me be clear. We were a serious research institution before we were an R1. We were probably a serious research institution, but some of you were there a decade or two before, right? So, okay, it's a big deal. Okay, here's Val. I'm taking off my president hat for a second. I don't care about the designation. I care about what we do and doing it at the highest level. We were already it before we got the designation. The reason I do care a little bit about designation is because it matters to other people. But really, the quality of what we do, we were doing it before we had the designation. And if we lose the designation, we'll still be doing it. It's fine, right? But it is a thing. It is an absolute thing. I will tell you, every institution I've ever been in was an R1. You know how much we talked about it? 0. Isn't that interesting? Because it was just like air we breathe, right? Here, we talk about it all the time, right? And that's just great. That is actually a great thing because we're really proud of it. And there's so many people trying to do it, right? And it's not trivial. Yeah, go ahead.
So let me just, towards the end, as you said, you're now a junior. So have you found some spots on campus that you really like? Places that have a special meaning to you, places?
Anywhere there's a student, I'm good. Oh my gosh, anyway, I'm telling you, I don't care how bad the day is. And let's just be clear, there are some hard days. Anybody who is leading anything, and I talk to, you're leading people, there's some hard days. So my favorite places are when I walk outside and I see our people. First of all, when I see our students, pure joy, right? And then I talk to faculty like Anupam, and he's this humble, kind, lovely person who happens to be the best at what he does in the world kind of people, right? Like, it's so beautiful. And then I run across our staff, and it could be the people who are keeping the grounds to the people who are serving the food. They care as much about student success as the faculty do. Like, that's just an extraordinary place to be. So on whatever the hard day is, or the hard thing is of the day, I just go outside. If it's not my office hour day when they're coming to me, I just go out, go to events, and I'm like, oh, this is why we do this. Yeah.
Thank you, Valerie. We really do appreciate that. I will, for the audience, say the following disclaimer as we close. We were thinking of asking Valerie a question about AI, since we are sort of in the Bay Area. It's an obligatory question. But I saw so many discussions happening about AI already that I figured we're kind of okay with AI right now. So thank you so much, Valerie. We do so appreciate that. And thank you to all our alums for coming out. And Staniel, back to you.
Thank you.